Hello world and true believers. This is Brenda, a lost Aspie girl, and I'm making this video today as a follow-up on the video I made last night regarding people on the spectrum and a sense of self, especially for those of us females on the spectrum. I discussed how I actually have a very strong sense of self and why I felt that way, and if you want more on that, you can watch the video I made last night. But today I also wanted to discuss some examples from my own life of why I don't necessarily because we can talk about the neurology and how our brain's wired and the VPN and mentalizing and all that, but sometimes I think anecdotal evidence gives some insight that all the research doesn't, and that's why there are tons of books out there by like John Elder Robinson and Temple Grandin and Ian Ford, who's now Star Ford, regarding our insight into why it is we think this way. I also read a couple of books written by two teenage boys who are actually very low functioning. I always wondered if just because someone's low functioning, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're not intelligent or don't have a really rich inner scape. Because one of the things that I think that is the difference between us and the rest of the world has more to do with communication than intelligence, and that a lot of the intelligence tests don't necessarily gauge this because of when you're taking an intelligence test, part of that is about communication, our ability to verbalize things or write things down or whatever. And if you have difficulties doing that, if your body doesn't respond the way you want, or you clutter, or because you don't think literally, or you think in pictures, and sometimes getting those words translated into those pictures translated into words is difficult, like in real time, or as quickly as a neurologist wants you to. It's not going to be a correct, accurate gauge of that sort of thing. So someone high functioning like me, I might do well in regards to some things, but where someone who is lower functioning doesn't, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're less intelligent. And I read these books by these boys. One was Japanese, one was Indian, from India, and it was exactly as I thought it was, that they had these rich inner scapes that until they were able to type or find a different way to communicate. One of them found an interesting way of learning the alphabet on the in a unique way. Shows that we have abilities, if we're able to tap into them, that are necessarily. It's kind of like when people, a long time ago, when people were deaf, they thought they were deaf and dumb because they weren't able to communicate, because they couldn't hear and they didn't learn the way other people did. And then they learned sign language and different things, and they realized that they were actually very intelligent. It just they didn't have the same means of, because they couldn't hear, they needed to have a different mechanism of learning language so they communicate their thoughts to other people. So of course, and that's why a lot of times people with inner ear problems when they're children, or different things like that, sometimes they're actually diagnosed with autism when they actually just have an inner ear problem. And that's something we can maybe get into another video. I'm digressing a little too much right now. So what I wanted to talk about, I was thinking about something about when I was a little kid, because I was listening to one of my my playlist, and a couple of songs that are on there. And I don't know if you guys remember, I don't know, of the whole Milli Vanilli scandal. I loved Milli Vanilli when I was a kid, and I loved all their songs. And when it came out that they weren't, the two guys that were supposedly weren't singing it, everybody was very, very upset, except for me. I didn't understand why people are upset by that. I was like, just because they weren't the ones singing it, it didn't change the fact that I liked the songs. Why don't we just give the accolades to the people who sang the songs and just keep listening to them? I didn't understand why everyone was so up in arms, and I kept listening to the songs anyway, and people would ask me, if I had headphones on, whatever, they're like, what do you listen to? I'm like, Milli Vanilli. They're like, oh my god, why would you listen to them, blah, 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 and I didn't understand why that was such a big deal. I was like, who cares if it didn't change the songs, I still like the songs, And it's kind of like, I feel like that I have that same mindset set with sports. I don't understand people's love of sports. And part of the reason I don't like sports, and I think part of the reason I can never get into them, is people's emotional investment into it. I try to like observe this and figure this out. But I think it has to do, and I'll actually get into my theory in a second. But people get very like when a team somebody likes and they're engaged and they have an emotional investment and loses or whatever, they get very upset. But the thing is, and they'll speak in terms of like, we lost or whatever. And because it's socially acceptable for them to get angry about sports, like somehow it's okay for them to yell at TV or yell in public venues. I get angry about things like I should be able to be angry about, but because it's not socially acceptable, I'm told I'm being inappropriate. But people are allowed to yell about sports, and they have no like actual like they're not the people playing the sports. They don't have a family member in them. They don't even know the people on the team. Sometimes the team isn't even from their hometown or whatever. Sometimes it is. I mean, whatever that tenuous connection they have to the team playing, like they get very, very upset. I don't understand this. I've never understood this. And people that are very, very logical minded will become superstitious, wearing like their clothing to make their team win, and they think somehow they will somehow impact their ability for the team to win, or people doing things or whatever. And this makes no sense to me at all. And people get upset with me for my emotional outbursts about things that actually should be have emotional outbursts. Like I'll get excited and I'll run, or I'll be uncomfortable in a social situation, I'll put headphones on, and that because I'm not supposed to do that, it's not okay. But is it socially acceptable to get angry about teams that you have nothing to do with? It's okay for people. And I think like people actually use that, like they'll really be angry about something going on at work, or their spouse or significant other or friend or family member or something like that. They're not allowed to show any of that, so they just wait until their team does shitty and then they can yell at the TV. I really think that's what it is. They're suppressing the emotion for something that is actually natural, and then they show it for something that actually makes no sense. That's the only thing I can think of. Or the other theory that I have is that it's like war. We're not have like people like they're not supposed to get upset about war, or they do get upset about war. But this is also like almost like a substitute for that, like almost like the team members are like surrogate soldiers or something like that, and they can get just as excited about this as they would for a country winning in a war or something like that. I'm not sure, but I know it has to be psychological on some level. And I'm sure that most people that are all you neurosocials out there, and maybe some of you people with Asperger's, but I'm not sure, maybe this is just me, will be like, all be upset and being like, it's obviously this, obviously that. I don't think it is. I've never understood it. It's not that I don't understand sports or whatever. It's just that I don't understand. Like, there's nothing I can equate it to. I've never, whether or not, like, I'll want a movie to do well that I like, or I'll hope that I'll like it. Like I wanted to like Suicide Squad so badly. And when I saw it, I was very disappointed. But I didn't get angry, and I didn't get upset. I didn't flip out. I was just like, hey, it is what it is. Sometimes a movie hits in the right place, sometimes it doesn't. But there's nothing else in my life that it's a form of entertainment that I get that upset with. Even to the point, like I said, like when something like the whole Milli Vanilli thing is, and I love them, and I still love them. I don't care that they weren't the ones singing the song. It didn't change the song for me. And I just don't understand that. And I don't know if that is something, I think it has to do with the fact that my brain is not influenced socially. If I like something, I like something. All the other weird things like don't matter to me. It's kind of like if someone if the president, if a president is doing well, I don't care if he does things, if he cheats on his wife or does whatever. I don't know why people care so much about someone's personal life. That doesn't seem to matter. As long as they do a good job, why does any of that stuff matter? Why does their character matter? As long as they do, like, I think they need to learn how to compartmentalize when it comes to things like that. Like if I'm reading my brother, if I read a book by somebody and then I find out things about them I don't like, I don't care. It doesn't change the story for me. I don't understand why people care about people's personal life so much. That doesn't make any sense to me. And I think that is definitely something that has to do with people that are on the spectrum. I don't think that we're influenced in that manner. It's about the facts, about whether or not, if something's good, it's good. It doesn't matter about a person's integrity. It doesn't change whether you like the story or the thing that they did, or whether or not they're able to do a good job in whatever it is that they're doing. But that's maybe just me. I'm not sure. The other thing that I wanted to share with you guys today, so I said this was about, sense of self, and I think those things come to do with sense of self. Whether how you define yourself socially, people define themselves socially, so they'll decide, like, if I like a sports team, like, I have to be invested in, I have to get upset about it or whatever. I think that when you're not that influenced socially, the thing how you define yourself is very differently, and people are always telling you that it's wrong or it's bad. And I think if you don't have that strong will or that strong sense of self, then you'll crumble in on yourself, or you'll second guess yourself or whatever. And I'm not saying that hasn't happened to me at times in my life, because it has, especially at my job. I even though I would know I was right about certain things, because I would have all these people, like, this is why I don't like consensus-based things. I would have tons of people against me, and even though the facts were on my side, because the majority vote was against me, like, it would go against me, and it would cause me to second guess myself, like, why, even though I have all these facts, these people saying that I'm wrong. I mean, it actually happened to me when I was in college once, where, like, I was on this debate team, and this is back in, like, 1993. And it was on marijuana, and whether or not marijuana had to be legalized. And I was on the side for legalizing, even though I don't smoke pot. I never have. I don't like pot. It makes me paranoid. I don't know why people smoke it. But I went out and I read all the research, found all this stuff. I saw all the good things about it, like hemp rope, all the things that you could, the benefits from, not just from the pot itself, or from all its, like, constituents, and how helpful it is to people. And I went in there and I just stated all the facts. And the other person, they just basically said all these things they talked about how it's a gateway drug and all this kind of stuff, which it really isn't. And they won the debate, and I got frustrated, and I talked to the professor afterwards, and she was like, it's not about the facts, it's about persuading your audience. And I was like, that's fucking bullshit. And again, I think that goes along with the social brain than it does about people that aren't influenced that way. We want the research, we want the facts, we don't give a shit about what other people think. It's about whether or not you can persuade us using actual legitimate evidence. Okay, so on whether, like, because, like, again, like the Milli Vanilli song, it doesn't matter if they didn't sing it. If the song is still good, why does it matter? I don't understand. Okay, and the other thing that I wanted to say about sense of self and everything like that is that people that are on the spectrum, we tend to do things, well, at any point of our life, we like to learn. If you can get us interested in something or obsessed about something, and even if we have executive functioning problems, that will usually override that. And I'm going to show you some examples of that, is that, like, I never was an artist. I never painted. I never did anything like that. I just didn't even think I was good at it. I took art in school and high school and stuff like everybody else does, and I never did well, and I didn't know why. I didn't question it or anything like that. And I got hospitalized a few years ago, and they had oil pastels, and they said, basically, this is, art therapy, create. So I did. And everybody was like, "Oh, you're an artist? Wow, those are really good." And I was like, "No, but I really liked it." And I started doing it, and I found out that if I'm not told to do something, or I'm not asked to copy something else, I can actually be quite creative. And I started doing on my own. I bought a bunch of oil pastels and oils and acrylics and canvas board, and started to go crazy. And I'm going to share some of that stuff with you now, so you can get an idea. And I also taught myself drumming. I always wanted to drum when I was a kid. My parents, I played flute, and I decided I didn't want to do that anymore. And then I asked my parents if I could play drums, and they were like, "Nope, if you quit flute, that's all, that you have one chance at the instruments. If you gave up on that, then we're not gonna take a chance on something else." But I always wanted to, and that desire to do it was always there. So I ended up starting out with one of the small electric drums, bought hand drums, moved on. Now I have a whole electric drum kit, like a full kit with, all the hi-hats and like everything, and I mean, they even have an amp and everything that I need. I don't know all the terminology yet, but I just like I did with painting, I do it intuitively. I listen to a song, and then I just try to figure, I can like see it in my head. And that's because I'll talk to artists now about my paintings, and they'll be like, how did you know how to do that? I'm like, I don't know. If I think about it, I can't do it, but if I don't think about it, it just comes to me. So I'm going to show some of that with you guys now, just so you can have an idea of what I'm talking about. So here's some of my paintings. This one I call A Return to Innocence, because I don't know if you guys can see, but it starts out with a city that it kind of exploded, and then it's turning into like a new land. That's why the sun is in front of the city, and you can see some of the outline of the old cityscape that was there before as it's going in the backdrop. So it exploded, and that's why the reflection in the water here changes. Okay, this one, I don't know, I don't have a name for it yet. Just about a wild woman. I kind of see that as myself. I'm kind of crazy and wild and a little bit weird. This one, I don't know, I had a dream about this, I don't have a name for this one yet either, but it's a close with the eye, kind of the all-seeing eye and the moon and the sky around it and everything like that. Another one with the eye, I don't know, I actually made this for one of my friends. I gotta give it to her. Sometimes some of my painting is more, let's see if we get this in some better lighting. It's a little, and I actually like this one sometimes. This is all oils, and I kind of like the texture. So that's another weird one. So in here are some of my more landscapey kind of ones. This one I call A Twilight Wasteland. This one I call Siren Solitude. It's actually weird. This one I actually posted. I had a website for a little bit, and I posted this one there, and someone wrote to me. Actually, some poems with them, some of these ones, and they point out that like it's beautiful how you have two trees growing on that island. I was like, it's one tree, and they're like, and I got into argument with them, and they're like, it's two trees, and I was like, I'm the one who drew it. I think I know what I drew, and he was like, go back and look at it, and I went back and looked at it and realized there are two trees, and it's kind of interesting. Sometimes even as an artist, you don't even realize what it is that you're doing. This one I call This Alien Shore. And then there's actually a couple others that I want to show you guys that are hanging on my wall. So, and this is actually one of the first ones I ever did when I got home after I was in the hospital. I call this one A Celestial Sea. And this is another one of my favorites, and I call it Mirror Mask. And these ones actually have some poetry to go with them as well. There are a few other ones I don't feel like showing you right now. I hope that is enough for today. And as per always, thank you for listening and tuning in, and hopefully I'll have more for you soon. Thank you. Peace out, everybody. Toodles.